Welcome back. This is the presentation on convergent evolution. Now, what is convergent evolution? In the previous presentation, we saw the adaptive radiation. Convergent evolution is something just opposite to adaptive radiation. Uh, Convergent evolution, it is a process of um, independent evolution of similar traits in organisms that are not monophyletically or closely related. Okay, so what is monophyletic group? Monophyletic group in the sense uh, group of species which have originated from the same ancestor. So the whole thing ancestor along with all the descendants form monophyletic group. Okay, so convergent evolution is actually development of similar traits in set of organisms, but these set of organisms are not closely related. So how the traits, similar trait have developed? The only reason is because of the similar kind of environment these group of organisms are living in. Okay, so based upon as a part of the adaptation to the same ecological niches, these entirely different or entirely what you call distant organisms have developed similar traits. Okay, so convergent evolution is a process whereby organisms which are not monophyletic or closely related independently evolve similar traits as adaptations to the same ecological niches or similar environments. Okay. The product or convergent evolution, it results in the formation of analogous structures. Okay, so what are analogous structures? Analogous structures are those uh, parts or organs of in organisms which are developed due to as an adaptation to live in similar kind of environment. Okay, and these organisms are not related at all. Okay, they are not monophyletically or closely related. So such structures are known as analogous structures. They are also referred as homoplasy. So what we can find in a what you call adaptive radiation, we can see that the adaptive radiation results in the formation of homologous structures, because externally we see, when we see morphologically they are not similar. Okay, externally they are not similar, but internally or origin wise they may be similar. So such structures are known as homologous structures. Adaptive radiation results in the formation of homologous structures, while convergent evolution results in analogous structures. Okay, as against what you call adaptive radiation, the in the case of the convergent evolution, what happens? It results in the formation of similar characters in unrelated or in a set of organisms which are not related at all. Okay, and hence what happens is, since adaptive radiation and convergent evolution are like just the opposite concepts, adaptive radiation is otherwise referred as divergent evolution. Okay, convergent evolution is against divergent evolution. That is what it is. Okay, there are plenty of examples here. You can see this is the concept of what you call adaptive radiation. That is, from the same ancestor, four species have arose, and all these four species have different kinds of characters, different set of characters to suit their what you call environmental conditions. Okay, as an adaptation to their environmental conditions. But here, this is what convergent evolution is all about. Okay, it is converging, isn't it? This is there are four species, and these four species have arose from four different ancestors: A1, A2, A3, A4, and these four species have developed similar characters because these four species are living in the same kind of an environmental condition. Okay, and this kind of an evolution of similar kind of traits in different organisms which are completely unrelated, uh, these this kind of evolution is known as convergent evolution. Okay, few examples: it is evolution of wings in insects, birds, pterozoans, bats. Okay, you may have already learned it when we discussed on the analogous structures. Okay, in the case of insects, the wings are just membranous expansions between the veins. It's not supported by any what you call um, endoskeletal structures, isn't it? While in the case of birds, pterozoans, and bats, it is supported by skeletal structures, right? They all have one thing in common, and that is their volant life or aerial life or flying adaptation. Okay, as a part of flying adaptation, they have developed the wings, but the wings are not homologous in nature. Okay, another example is that of the dorsal fins in the case of ichthyosaurs, the sharks and dolphin. Shark is a fish, ichthyosaur is a reptile, and dolphin is a mammal. But you can see morphologically they all look similar, isn't it? Even these three do have the dorsal fins and the other fins almost similar, isn't it? Externally, if we see, they all look similar, but internally and origin wise, embryological origin wise, they are all different. Okay, such kind of adaptations which have arose in like unrelated organisms due to their mode of life, it is known as a convergent evolution, and such structures are known as analogous structures. Okay, so this is about the convergent evolution. Now, another concept which we are going to discuss in this presentation is about the pre-adaptation. Now, pre-adaptation, it is evolutionary process of adaptive chance variation whereby an organism acquires a new character or function that becomes useful adaptation after many generations in an entirely different environment in a later evolutionary stage. Okay, we can explain this with an example, like bird feathers. Okay, bird feathers, initially it was developed as a means for heat insulation. Okay, at that time those organisms, those ancestors which possessed the feathers, never had the adaptation, never had the what you call ability to fly. Okay, so it was never an adaptation for flight, or birds feathers were not evolved as an adaptation for flight at the initial phases of the evolutionary cycle. But later what happened is, the descendants of these organisms which had the bird's feathers, they slowly evolved into birds, and the flying birds which later developed, they started to use these feathers as an adaptation for flight. So such kind of a what you call adaptation, or a character, or a trait, or a part of the body, okay, that is known as a pre-adaptation. I hope it is clear. Okay, so pre-adaptation, you can see it can be considered as the characters which have usefulness or adaptive value not in the immediate environment, but in a different distant future environment, okay, or mode of life. So the character may be present, but it may not be useful at the present, but in the later generations, or in the what you call uh, distant future generations, it may become useful. Okay, such kind of adaptations or characteristic features are known as pre-adaptation, right? This kind of pre-adaptations, it provide organisms some degree of physical and physiological tolerance which would enable them to gain adaptation in a new environment. Okay, in a completely different set of environment, they can very well get adapted to. The alleles or gene combinations responsible for pre-adaptation may be retained if their presence in gene pool is not seriously disadvantageous to the species, the survival of the species. Okay, pre-adaptive traits would not necessarily be present in all the populations of a species. Some populations may undergo rapid change, some others what happened, this may get eliminated, still others may get sharply reduced in size, these pre-adaptive structures, and yet in other in other cases what happens is the pre-adaptive structures may not change very much, so long as the selection pressure is not so severe. So the best example is, obviously, one is bird feathers, another is the presence of membranous lungs, internal nostrils, then what you call the air gulping habit, and fleshy and lobular lateral fins and crossoterids. All these are examples. Okay, in the case of lungs, if we speak, the ancient fishes represent the stock from which the first land vertebrates evolved. Okay, that is the amphibians evolved. Their lung and nostrils are important for atmospheric breathing on land. Their lateral fins were somewhat similar to amphibian limbs in that they were supported by bony elements comparable to the what you call limb bones of the terrestrial vertebrates. Okay, so all these structures were present in the fishes itself. Okay, in the ancestors from where the amphibians evolved. But obviously, in their ancestors, these structures like the lung breathing or nostrils, or what you call lobular lateral fins, all those structures were used for swimming. But the descendants later that evolved from these ancestors could use it for walking on land, for having a best adapted for what you call terrestrial life. Okay, so this is regarding the pre-adaptation. Fine.